Hey there, Alex Kidman here. Today, testing out what I've got in my ears here. The brand new, still to be released at the time I'm recording this, in fact, Shokz OpenRun Pro 2 headphones. These are Shokz's latest running headphones, and I did something slightly different to my usual approach here when they first showed up, because they showed up before I actually had the info on them. So I thought, right, they're runners' headphones. Let's go for a run, just see what I think, without any of the hype, without any info about anything special that they were doing or anything new they were doing. So what did I think on first impression? Okay, so first run down, and yeah, it's been nice and comfortable. The audio is good so far. I'm exhausted, but running on a Solid will do that to you. First impression though, I don't know that these are an upgrade from the existing OpenFit runs if you've already got those, because I need to test them some more, obviously, before I come to a full conclusion there. I'm going to go collapse into a glass of water. Back to me in the studio. Okay, so that's my first impression. Does it still hold? Well, let's dive into it a little bit deeper then. And look, on the design front, if you just picked up the OpenRun Pro 2 headphones and you'd already used, for example, the existing OpenRun Pro headphones, you might be a little hard-pressed to spot the differences. There are some differences. The way that they've changed up the audio means that the actual speaker grills and stuff on them are slightly different, but this is not some huge radical reinvention. We're still talking broadly bone conduction. I'll get into the differences there in a minute. Headphones built with a band at the back. Now, Shokz do make them in two sizes, which I appreciate. I have a larger skull than most, to be honest. You might have picked that. So the standard size fit me just fine, but there is also a mini size if you have a smaller cranium. I do appreciate that. I've got the black model here, nice for blending into my glasses, really. But there's also a bright orange model, which is very reminiscent, for example, of the OpenSwim Pros I've already tested, if you like more of that kind of high-vis look. I guess if you do a lot of running at night, that could be a good thing, or maybe just a bit extroverted. Still, the changes here are subtle. I mean, technically, for example, these are 1.3 grams heavier than their predecessors, which feels like an odd choice for running headphones, but actually makes a lot of sense for reasons that I'll get into when we talk about battery and battery life predominantly. I think most runners are going to be happy with that 1.3 grams, and honestly, if you can tell the difference between 1.3 grams of headphones on your head when they're balanced against your ears this way, then I think you've got Daredevil super senses, to be honest with you. I suppose, to be fair, if you're something like an ultra-marathon runner, then that extra weight might make a tiny perceptual difference, but I honestly feel like one of those things that you'd only notice once you were told, oh, these ones are heavier. Most people will just not pick that at all. You do also still get a carrying case, and that's great for protecting the headphones. These are not inexpensive headphones for sure, but they're quite bulky. Most people are not, unless they're wearing hammer pants, going to be able to actually carry the carrying case along with them while they're running, if that's important to you. But that's been the case for most of these, and there's not so much you can do for headphones with bands like these to make the carrying case that much smaller anyway. What about the controls? Well, again, that's something I feel like I should test in the field. Back over to me. And another park run done. This time concentrating on the controls, which actually don't feel that different from prior models. So standard volume up, down, and the up is also power on and Bluetooth pairing, and then a function button on the other side. When I'm running, I tend to forget where the function button is, although I don't tend to need to pause my music much, but these are all fine, reasonably durable. But they certainly don't feel like all that much has changed. So what makes these the OpenRun Pro 2s as distinct from the Pro 1s? Well, there's a couple of under-the-hood technical improvements. So there's a Bluetooth 5.3 rather than 5.1, for example. But the big thing here is Shokz's use of a mix of primarily bone conduction for most audio tones, plus some open-air drivers, primarily for delivering bass tones. And the idea here is that if you push the bass out through open-air speakers, then they're not rattling your skull so much. You don't potentially get that buzzing kind of thing that some people experience. But if you keep the broader audio just within bone conduction, you're also not broadcasting it to the world, it's still clear. And of course, you still get that open ear advantage. And Shokz's contention is that this will give you better audio. But does it? Well, again, I think this needs an in-the-field test. Back over to me. Another rundown. So what about audio listening quality? Because Shokz has made some big bold claims about the use of both bone conduction and its open-air microphone stuff to give you more highs and lows. And the answer there is, well, it depends. So if I'm listening in my office where it's relatively quiet, yeah, I can pick that these are a little bit better than prior Shokz models. There's definitely improvement there for sure. However, sorry, I am out of breath. I did just run 5K after all. However, when you're out running, of course, you've got other factors, namely the ambient noise around you. I mean, I've just been for a run and there's been cars and people doing gardening and bikes and people walking past and airplanes, all the things you actually do want to hear. I mean, you don't necessarily want to hear an airplane that close, I guess, but I digress. The point is, that audio going into your ears, of course, is going to have a certain muffling effect on what you're getting out of the Shokz and whether or not you get as much out of them as you might otherwise. And these are meant to be runners' headphones. I guess, of course, if you run in a gym or something like that, that might be a bit lessened for you. Still, the audio quality is improved. It's nice. I don't know that I'd say I would automatically upgrade over a prior pair of Shokz if you've still got some that are working, but it's definitely an improvement. Now back to me in the studio. Connectivity for the OpenRun Pro 2 is, of course, via Bluetooth. And here it's just that simple matter of holding the power, which is also volume up button, in for long enough for them to announce their pairing, and then you can pair it to just about anything you like. Now, you can just do that, but if you want a little bit more fine-tuning, you'll need the Shokz app. Early on, I hit an issue where I couldn't actually get them to see that. That's because it was an early version of the app. So if you're an existing Shokz user and you upgrade to these, and I'll get into that in a minute as well, then you will need to make sure you're running the most recent version of the app. Shokz provided me with early access so that I could actually test out that functionality, and that covers most of the usual bases. So things like firmware upgrades and enabling multi-point pairing and equalization modes. And here again on the audio is better on these within the limits of what you can do with an open-air headphone, but I would still advise people to tap the bass boost setting for equalization. Bass is always going to be a problem for headphones like these, and having it accentuated, even if you don't listen to particularly thumpy music, is still an audio plus, at least to my ears. Audio pickup from the microphones in the Shokz OpenRun Pro 2 is quite decent. I mean, you can hear me talking on them now. It's very obvious I'm on some kind of Bluetooth device, but it's certainly clear enough and present enough for calling purposes. Of course, the big benefit here is that you can still hear the world around you. As I noted, that does have an impact on the overall audio quality. I should also note, these aren't the loudest headphones out there. Now, that's great if you don't want to broadcast what you're listening to the world, and you shouldn't, by the way. If you're one of those people who likes having their phone on noisy on a train, then I hate you. But I digress. Calm down, Alex. Get back to the review. There, we're good. What I was trying to say, though, is while these don't leak sound that much, they also don't get super noisy or super loud, and that does have an impact if you are in a noisy environment, because they don't punch as loud. So in some circumstances, I have struggled a little bit to make out my music while I've been running. Not terribly so, and usually, of course, situationally, if you're running, you're generally running past where that noise can be, so it typically won't last that long. But if you're looking for something for listening in an office all day long before you run, then you might pick up a little bit more of the office chatter and less of your music as you go. So I mentioned that the OpenRun Pro 2 headphones were marginally heavier than their predecessors, and that is true. And part of the reason for that is that there's been an improvement in battery capacity. So the Shokz OpenRun Pro 2 feature 150 milliamp hour batteries. Now that might not sound like much when your smartphone has 5,000 milliamp hours, for example. But the reality here is that Bluetooth headphones don't actually need that much power. And this is a boost up from the 140 milliamp hour battery on the original model. And again, you might think, well, 10 milliamp hours, that's not going to make much of a difference, is it? Well, it does. So Shokz rates these for up to 12 hours of battery life. The originals were up to 10. And in all honesty, I can't run for 12 hours straight. I would die. But in more ad hoc testing in my office, taking them for runs, I've gotten over that 10-hour figure. And getting over that 10-hour figure makes me feel that, 12 hours is generally going to be achievable. Obviously, it does depend on how you use them and volume levels and so on. But it's nice to see that boost. However, this is not my favourite thing about the way the Shokz OpenRun Pro 2 handle their power. My favourite thing is that they don't require a custom charging cable. I'm so happy about this. Really happy. Happier than any man should be about what is ultimately a USB-C cable, but there you have it. Maybe I need a life. That aside, yes, they're USB-C charging capable. You don't get a charger in the box, just a simple little cable, but if it goes missing, you can easily replace it. You've probably already got one. Even if you're traveling, they're very easy to get, as distinct from those custom pogo pin style deals that Shokz has used for most of their headphones to date. I love this. I think this is a really, really smart improvement. I really hope they bring it to the rest of their range where practical. I can kind of see why maybe it might be a harder thing to do for the swimming headphones, for example. But on these, I love it. It's a huge improvement. Probably my favourite thing about the OpenRun Pro 2s. So should you buy the Shokz OpenRun Pro 2 headphones? Well, look, I think they're very, very good for what they do. They are premium priced for sure, and they are a nice improvement over the existing OpenRun Pro headphones. However, if you've got a set of those, yeah, the upgrade envy argument perhaps isn't there quite as strongly as it might be. I think that's actually probably broadly true of most Shokz sets. But if your existing Shokz have worn out, or if you're after a premium set of runners headphones, these ones come highly recommended. So that's my Shokz OpenRun Pro 2 headphones review. Got any thoughts or comments? As long as they're not comments about how awful I look after I've been running, hit me up in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.